Hello my friends, it is June the 5th of 2022. This video is about how I learned guitar. Okay, so everybody that is a guitar player has learned differently, and I've certainly had my own unique way of how I learned to play the guitar, and I will be sharing that with you in this video. Okay, so let's get right into it. Okay, so growing up I got heavily into rock music, and then hard rock, and then heavy metal. Okay, so yeah, I just had a deep love for all that kind of music, and so I wanted to play the guitar. Obviously the guitar is one of the main instruments within rock and metal music, so yeah, I just really want to play the guitar. Okay, so at 13 years of age I decided, okay, I'm going to learn how to play the guitar, and so initially I decided to just borrow a guitar. It was an acoustic guitar, a very cheap acoustic guitar. I borrowed it from a relative, and yeah, so I started to take some lessons from somebody that was local. This particular person did lessons out of their home. I think they had a variety of students, and they were quite young themselves. I believe this individual was, I believe, 17 years old at the time. And so yeah, I must have taken lessons with him for, I want to say, approximately 6 months maybe. And it was okay. It was nothing too eventful, to be honest. I suppose I learned a few things, maybe not much at all, to be quite honest. But yeah, it was an interesting experience. And one of the books that he gave me to learn the guitar on was this one right here. This is Alfred's Basic Guitar Method. So that was my first ever guitar book that I had received. So yeah, that would have been at 13 years of age. And I do recall learning some of the stuff in this book. But yeah, it's a decent book, I suppose. But yeah, it's not that useful for me, to be quite honest. But yeah, so that was my initial learning experience with the guitar. So yeah, so I stopped taking lessons with him after a while. I think he just discontinued lessons. I think he had a lot going on in his life, and he just decided that he wasn't going to give guitar lessons anymore. I believe that's what happened, and so yeah, I just stopped taking guitar lessons, and then I just started to learn on my own. And so in my early to mid-teens, I just started to practice quite a bit more on my own. I bought an electric guitar when I was 15 years of age, and yeah, purchased an amp shortly afterwards, and some pedals, a few pedals. I do recall purchasing a Digitech, I think it was an RP250 pedal. It was a nice pedal, actually. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed that pedal quite a bit, and yeah, I started practicing quite a bit in my mid-teens, especially. Started practicing quite a lot. I would say maybe two hours, if not more, each evening, and yeah, so I was quite diligent about it. And started to purchase some more books when I was about 15, 16. Yeah, just started purchasing a variety of different books that I had learned of, and or learned about. I would go to music shops and I would see some books there that interested me, so I would purchase them and order some books as well. Here's one of the first books I bought. This is Acoustic Rock. It's a pretty thin book, but yeah, it's actually pretty decent. It's got a lot of different chords in here, some different techniques and whatnot. Yeah, not bad at all. Here's another one, Rock Chords for Guitar. This one's okay as well. It shows you how to play some different bar chords, power chords, obviously. Yeah, fairly thin book as well. Decent for a beginner, I would say. Right Hand Techniques, that's another book. I actually enjoyed this one quite a bit. Yeah, just covers a variety of different picking techniques, like alternate picking and sweep picking, and yeah, different techniques of various sorts here. Yeah, decent book. Arpeggios for Guitar, that was another one. Pretty decent. Yeah, I would have went through these books quite a bit. I definitely started to develop an interest in like music theory. I just want to understand the inner workings of music, and I believe that was an important thing to learn. So I definitely made it my part of my learning schedule. So this was one of the books that I picked up on music theory. Music theory for guitar. There's quite a bit of information here. Fairly straightforward. Although I would have found music theory to be fairly complicated when I was younger. It took me a while to actually really learn it well. Here's another book I think is quite good. This is entitled An Introduction to Chord Theory. Actually a pretty good book, this one. It's got lots of information, a little bit technical, but yeah, I definitely learned quite a bit from this particular book right here. Here's another one, Scale Chord Relationships. Excellent one. Covers a variety of different scales and how to perform those scales over different chord progressions. Yeah, and this is without a doubt my most used book. I use this book almost every day still. It's called Chords and Scales for Guitar. Yeah, I've had this book since I was about 16 years of age, and it's gotten a lot of use. It's actually quite beat up. The cover is actually detached from the rest of the book, and it's got lots of wear and tear on it. But yeah, it's an excellent book. This is by far the most used book that I have on music and guitar. Yeah, so I would just learn from various books, and again, this was before the internet. Well, the internet would have been in its infancy at the time. This would have been back in the early 2000s, so there was no such thing as like smartphones at that time, and at my home we didn't even have a computer at that time, so I didn't have any access to the internet at home. I did have some access at school, but that was about it. And yeah, so I just mostly learned from books, but also from magazines as well. I'll show you some of the magazines that I would have read. I read Guitar World quite a bit. I remember getting a subscription for Guitar World when I was about, I believe, 13 or 14. I would read that magazine quite regularly. So Guitar World, this one right here. I have lots of issues of Guitar World. This is just an example of one of the Guitar Worlds that I have. Here's another Guitar World. These are going back many years, at least, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. Yeah, this one is from 2003, so it's going back quite a ways. And Guitar One was another magazine that I read as well. I believe I did subscribe to that one for a few years. I don't think they make this magazine anymore, but it was a pretty decent one as well. Here's another issue of Guitar One. I have quite a few issues of Guitar One still here at my place, but yeah, this was a decent one as well. But I definitely enjoy Guitar World the most, and would read that one pretty religiously, and always enjoy when that would come into the mail each month. And so yeah, and so in my mid to late teens I was practicing quite a bit and just learning on my own. I didn't know anybody else that played guitar, and so I was just on my own to sort of figure everything out. Yeah, it would have been great to have some friends or family members or whoever to teach me a thing or two, but unfortunately there was nothing, and I just had to go through the process of learning everything on my own, and made a lot of mistakes along the way, and but eventually I did figure things out and got a good handle on it. But yeah, and so yeah, like I said, I only took those lessons when I was about 13. So in my late teens I started to take lessons again when I was around 19, 20, 21. Yeah, I decided to take a variety of different lessons at some different music centers, and I must have had about a half dozen of different teachers. Some of them were quite brief, some of them would leave, they would quit their job and go somewhere else or whatever. There was a variety of different circumstances, or sometimes things just wouldn't work out with a particular teacher. Sometimes as a student you just don't really relate to the teacher all that well, so you try somebody else, and that was sort of the situation I had or was in for a couple of years there. But I learned some stuff from some of these teachers, but not much, very little, to be quite honest. It was an interesting experience, but yeah, it wasn't necessarily for me. But there were a couple of teachers that I did get along with well, and there were others that I didn't necessarily get along with particularly well, but it was an interesting experience overall. But yeah, when I was around 21 or so, I decided to, you know what, no more. And I just decided to start practicing more on my own. And at that time, when I was around 21, I decided, you know, I'm going to start working on writing my own material. I was a die-hard metalhead at that time, and I had been for a number of years. So I decided, you know, I'm going to start writing my own metal music, writing and recording my own music. So that's what I started to do. I just purchased some recording equipment, some very basic stuff. I had like a 4-track recorder initially, and so that's what I would use to record some of my earliest material. It was a Tascam. No, sorry, it was a Zoom. That was that was right. It was a Zoom 4-track digital recorder, and I used that one quite a bit to record lots of stuff. And yeah, and so around that time too, and going back a little bit before that, when I was in my early 20s, I was, of course, learning other material as well from other bands, and I did purchase quite a bit of tab books in my early 20s, and so stuff like this, Metallica, the Black Album, learned some of the stuff on there. Black Sabbath, this is sort of like a best of collection. Yeah, I learned quite a bit on here. I learned quite a bit of Sabbath riffs. Certainly one of my favorite bands. Opeth, I have this book here. This is like a best of as well. Yeah, I was a big fan of Opeth back in the day. Not so much anymore, but well, I can still appreciate some of their music, but I don't really follow them as much anymore. But I was definitely like a die-hard Opeth fan back in the day. Alice in Chains' album Dirt. Love this album, and I remember learning some of the stuff on there. Pantera, obviously one of my all-time favorite bands. This is sort of like almost like a best of collection as well. A bunch of songs from their different albums. So yeah, I learned a bunch of Pantera. So yeah, and I have some other tab books that I have as well, but those are some of my favorites right there. So yeah, I learned different riffs in my early 20s, and then obviously I was starting to write my own music, and yeah, and it's I've been writing and recording ever since. So and I've made lots of upgrades throughout the years, and obviously putting out albums with my band ORDO CHAO. I've always been like a one-man band. Mostly, I did play with a few guys back when I was like my late teens maybe, but that was all pretty uneventful. But yeah, when I was in my early 20s, like I had mentioned, I started to write and record all my own stuff, and yeah, it's been great. I'm putting out a new album soon, and I'm very, very thrilled about that. So yeah, that's my that's how I learned guitar. That's my whole history of guitar, basically, and just giving you the short history here. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, all right. Okay, so that's how I learned guitar. Okay, so yeah, I absolutely love the guitar. I really truly do, and love metal music, and obviously writing and recording music. And I will be putting out a new album very soon. I just recently finished the final mix on my new album, and I'm very, very pleased with it. This album sounds incredible. Okay, and I know that everybody that is a fan of my band ORDO CHAO will definitely enjoy this album. Okay, so yeah, look out for that. I will be making a big announcement for that sometime in the near future. Okay, so thank you very much for watching, and I want to say thanks to all the people who watch my videos and subscribe to my channel. I really truly appreciate it. Okay, so take care, my friends. Cheers.